For decades, Germany was the beating heart of Europe. Its economy an unstoppable machine, and its politics a model of stability. Not anymore. The engine of European growth is now faltering. Its economic model, once envied, is now in agony.
Behind all this stands a broader ideology. And the broader ideology is a sort of a chain of arguments. We are an industrial economy, which is true. There is certainly an expertise made in Germany. It stands for high quality products. But the mistake was that we need to make export surpluses. Even exporting there's nothing wrong with exporting for as long as you're importing. But Germany made export surpluses. The German system was based on an imbalance. The German media celebrated the imbalance by writing articles as, "Oh, wow, Germany is the export world champion again." Now, being the export world champion is a meaningless economic category. We measure our economic well-being in terms of welfare, in terms of income, in terms of assets. However you measure it, but you don't measure it in terms of sort of pseudo metrics like, oh, we are the world's largest exporter. That's basically a celebration of an imbalance, because what it means, it makes you dependent. Germany became dependent on Russia. Germany's dependent on China. Germany's actually now dependent on the United States because the United States is our biggest market. These dependency have huge political consequences. It's not a good thing to be dependent on others. It is much better to have a more balanced approach. That means others are as dependent on you as you are on them.
For the second consecutive year, Germany's economy has contracted. A 0.2% decline in 2024 followed a 0.3% fall in 2023, making it the longest stagnation in modern post-war history. The German car industry is facing a potential loss of 1 in 4 jobs in the next decade. In January this year, German unemployment hit almost 3 million, with job vacancies disappearing rapidly. The country that was once synonymous with the European Union's stability now faces an uncertain future. Germany is at the center of a shift in the global order. The storm from across the Atlantic, led by US President Donald Trump, raises questions that Germany hasn't had to answer in more than 70 years.
So I think the appearance of a good relationship between the US and Germany can be a bit deceptive sometimes. I think it's often, under the Biden administration, it could have seemed that Germany and the US had this really great relationship, but of course Germany still had all these vulnerabilities, and we're just seeing those kind of come out into the open now. I think particularly after the 2022 full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, you see Germany actually get even more dependent on the US, whether that's for LNG or whether that's for trying to the Zeitenwende and trying to boost up its military with purchases of, say, the F-35. And so I wouldn't necessarily see the relationship as oscillating between good and bad, but rather sort of abusive and benign. And so when Trump gets in, he starts kind of exploiting these vulnerabilities that Germany, really, it's kind of its own fault in some ways, did not insulate itself against during the previous Democratic administration. And I think you see that with both Trump eras. And Germany can be in a bit of denial when there's a more Atlanticist Democrat in the White House. Say, oh, well, this is good now. Things must always be like this. But to any keen observer over the last 4 years, you could kind of see this trouble brewing. And so, yeah, of course, there's going to be a lot more headlines and news about spats between the two governments. But these kind of vulnerabilities that now, Trump's just kind of driving a wedge through and really putting out into the open, those were there all along. It's just a matter of how those are being wielded.
Are you going to impose tariff too on European Union like you are going to do for Mexico and Canada?
You want the truthful answer?
Yes,
or
I want the
should give
truth.
you a political answer.
The truth.
Absolutely.
Trump's America First policy, trade tariffs, and threats to scale back the US military presence in Europe have put Germany in an awkward position. The US might not be as reliable an ally as before, and Germany is still reluctant to take any military role outside its borders. Europe's looming trade war with China also threatens Germany's economy.
Because they have not kept pace with the digital revolution. Germany is clearly not a leader in anything to do with high tech. It doesn't have any high tech companies. The last digital company in Germany is from the early 1970s, and the average age of the DAX 40 companies is about 160 years. It's a country that has gotten stuck in 20th century technology. It's optimized those technologies, been very good. It's hard to beat a German car in terms of its a fuel-driven car, I have to say, in terms of its engineering excellence. But the fuel-driven car is not the future. And the Germans have not made the investment into e-cars. They are certainly not made the investments into software. And that is where they're lagging behind. And this is not something that government policy can easily fix.
Germany's fiscal policy, deeply entrenched in strict financial rules, has added to the economic burden. The country's debt brake, or Schuldenbremse, is a constitutional measure that limits the amount of debt the government can take on. But as Germany's economy contracts and risks spiraling downward, could these constitutional constraints be challenged?
I don't think we should change the rule. So first of all, with the existing rules, we can add 50 billion additional debt every year. 50 billion, it's a lot. So, and the second point is, of course, who gives us a guarantee that our children and grandchildren will have less problems? Are we sure that there's not another war, another pandemic, when we also need money? So if we stretch it too far, we will have a big problem for future generations. And I think many things can be solved without money.
Across the political spectrum, no one dares propose this constitutional change. In addition to its deep economic problems, Germany has been in political turmoil with the collapse of the so-called traffic light coalition of socialists, the Liberals, and the Greens in November 2024. As a result, Chancellor Scholz decided to call a snap election that risks deepening wounds rather than pulling Germany out of its nosedive.
Germany is in a political crisis for at least 1 year, because a year ago it was clear the government couldn't make a budget which really accommodates the needs. Even before the Liberals has been kicked out of the government, they were not able to really address the challenges. And of course, in the last months, the crisis has been bigger, but it is a substantial crisis for at least 1 year.
Stability, predictability, and a steady hand at the wheel were the distinctive features of German political culture. Olaf Scholz was voted into office on an unspoken promise to keep German politics boring. He positioned himself as a guarantor of stability and the natural heir to Angela Merkel, who reigned over Germany for 16 years. But things haven't worked out as planned for Scholz. German politics is now more fractious than at any time in recent memory. The stability that was once a source of pride has given way to polarization and a growing sense of uncertainty. With economic problems and the opening of the doors to mass migration, a policy initiated by Merkel 10 years ago, Germans have suffered from lower standards of living, and many citizens have lost faith in the ability of mainstream parties to solve the country's most pressing issues. This has fueled the rise of anti-establishment movements and anti-immigration parties, such as the Alternative for Deutschland.
People see scarcity around them, they see new people in the country, they say, okay, well, the solution to the scarcity is having fewer people in the country. But that really stems from a lot of economic choices, especially ones that were made in the 2010s under Merkel, and the austerity program there is by kind of shrinking or holding fixed the size of the pie. Of course, more people trying to get at the pie is going to be perceived as a threat. And so, yeah, of course, economic issues do play a big role in the rise of the AfD. Of course, they're number one issue.
Faced with this pressure, the centre-right CDU, long associated with Merkel's moderate leadership, has begun to embrace a harder stance on immigration. For the first time since World War II, the CDU, alongside the liberal FDP party, voted with the AfD to pass stricter immigration rules in the federal parliament. While the vote wasn't binding, it marked a profound shift in German politics. CDU leader Friedrich Merz, tipped to be Germany's next chancellor, defended the decision, arguing that the substance of the law matters more than the people who voted for it. Merz's apparent siding with the hard-right AfD ignited a political firestorm. Thousands took to the streets in outrage. Activists condemned what they called a historic betrayal. Mainstream German media outlets also weighed in, questioning Merz's political gamble.
We have in Germany our Grundgesetz. So this is the basis in our society. And they want to weaken this basis. And this is why all people have to stand up and say, okay, these are our values. And they had to be strengthened, like democracy, like peace, like solidarity, values like that, or equality. And the AfD and the far-right parties want to attack them. And this is why they are not on the basis of our values, of our society. And this is why we can't work with them. Okay, maybe they got some voters in a democratic elections, but they are not democratic. So this is why we have to build up that firewall.
Some argued that Germany's steadfast commitment to the firewall, the exclusion of radical right-wing parties from power, is actually doing more harm than good to German democracy.
All of this blackout is done in the name of protecting democracy. It's always we're because we so believe in democratic values. We're gonna deny the AfD its parliamentary representation, its committee member representation, its committee leadership that its numbers in the parliament would entitle it to.
Ich glaube, dass wir in ein neues Zeitalter eintreten und dass diese Dinge der Brandmauern, wie man so sagt in Deutschland, ja, dass die eigentlich der Vergangenheit angehören. Man kann das gerne weiter verfolgen von bestimmten politischen Gruppen, aber man wird auf der Verliererseite der Geschichte stehen. Ich würde sagen, das ist so ein Moment, wie damals Gorbatschow 89 beschrieben hat. Wer zu spät kommt, dem bestraft das Leben, ist so ein Zitat, was ihm zugerechnet wird. Und ich denke eben, wer Brandmauern erhalten will, wer Cordon sanitaire weiter propagiert, ist ein Verlierer der Geschichte. Also das wird über kurz oder lang hinfällig werden. Die politischen Realitäten werden sich durchsetzen.
The constant ostracization of the AfD in media and public life raises questions about the future coalition that will emerge after the election.
It is all our responsibility after the election to come together, to talk to the different parties, to talk to the different options we have. But I think it is really important that we have some goals, like we are strengthening our democracy, we bring people together, and when the Conservatives, after the election, are working together with the AfD, there will be no option that we are working together with the CDU, with the Conservatives in a coalition. This is really clear, and I think also for the Greens. So we need a really, really strong statement from the Conservatives that they promise that they will never work again with the far right. And if they don't, or if they are working together with them, then we don't have a coalition with them.
Will the Socialists and the Greens be prepared to continue working with the centre-right following Merz's move? Can a grand coalition in the centre work again for Germany?
We could have another grand coalition or another kind of coalition of the center, say, with the Greens involved. However, it would be increasingly rickety, increasingly beset with a lot of contradictions and tensions, and increasingly, I think moving to the right, certainly on cultural issues. The real big question for any new coalition would be what to do about investment and debt.
One unexpected twist emerged in the run-up to the election. Tech mogul Elon Musk, wielding immense influence through his social media platform X and business ventures in Germany, unexpectedly inserted himself into the country's political landscape.
Twitter is the new media now. The people are the media now. We no longer need the legacy media, the mainstream media, and people have been realizing they lied to us for so many years. They're done with this, right? So we are looking at a new era of processing information and getting information, and it's actually the voice of the people, which is a good thing.
Many in Germany interpreted Musk's apparent endorsement of the Alternative for Deutschland as an attempt to sway voters, igniting a broader debate over foreign influence in national elections. Some argue Musk fails to grasp the political complexities at play in Germany.
I don't think Elon Musk is really interested because he didn't really understand what AfD is planning. For example, his factory close to Berlin, Tesla factory, has been dramatically opposed by the AfD. They didn't want this, his investment. And the horrible economic effects of the AfD program, they speak about leaving the European Union, that will create economic problems. You know, we are in deep trouble already now, but this will be 10 or 20 times worse if we leave the European Union. So he has no real idea what's happening in Germany, and I think it's not fair to intervene in the German campaign this way.
Following Musk's involvement, establishment parties pushed for an investigation of X.
On a political level, we make very clear to our friends in the United States that these influence, that he's trying to influence German elections, that is something we don't expect. And on the other hand, we take a close look on his platforms, X for example, and there we have some rules and possibility inside the European Union, the Digital Service Act, where we have the possibility to stop fake news, to stop hate speech on these levels. So we have possibility and we have something to do, of course. But on the other hand, we have to make it very clear as politicians that people with lots of money who try to influence our political debate here in Germany, that is not acceptable for us.
Whether Elon Musk's involvement will have any real lasting impact remains to be seen. It may actually do the AfD more harm than good.
It's the mainstream parties that want to ban the AfD. This is insane. That is anti-democratic. They are against free speech. If you're banning Twitter, you're against, that's the anti-democratic. You are against free expression.
Any such investigation would quickly raise issues of free speech in Europe.
I think there's a kind of low-level skepticism of American influence and celebrity culture and media more generally in Germany. And so I think having the world's richest man coming over from America and trying to support the AfD, obviously, you can manipulate the algorithm on X or whatever. But I think the sort of average German would just see that and be like, oh, that sort of makes me dislike this party more, that this outsider is just parachuting in and saying, hey, vote for the far right. I think that that could actually be a kind of uniting force in German politics, because, like I said, there's a little bit more social democratic ethos in Germany, and I think people do find the idea of someone that rich just coming into a foreign country and trying to influence their politics.
Dark clouds are hovering over Germany. This month, the Germans will decide if they are prepared to embark on a radical new path or not. Will Germany double down on its economic orthodoxy, risking further stagnation? Or will it embrace a new coalition that breaks with decades of political traditions? Could voter frustration push the country toward a radical realignment that no one saw coming? Can anybody make Germany great again?